All right, so let's talk about the project though. Your project. So you're going to make a short, no more than 6 minutes. So 3 to 6 minutes. So just a learning, kind of like a learning segment of a flipped video. So something that a student would be really be watching independently of the teacher, and then you do be doing some type of a follow-up activity in class. So in that amount of time, you're probably teaching one simple topic. One, if it's like sports and you're doing PE, you're talking about one basic skill or a health concept or something like that. The file size and all of this is basically listed in Blackboard, so it's not like you need to remember it. But this is one of the reasons why you don't want to go bigger than 150 megs for the file size. Or I'm sorry, for the 6 minutes for the length, because the file size will get too big. And what inevitably happens is I get students who contact me on Sunday that their video is been hanging up loading for 2 hours as they're just sitting there being stressed about it. So make sure. That's why I finally put the limit in that nothing, I wouldn't take anything a second over 6.5 minutes. Because if I, before I said that, I would get 9, 10, 11, 12, sometimes minute videos, which do take longer to grade. Not that that's that big a deal, but really, a lot of times those are the ones that wouldn't load properly into live text. So again, keep it short. And then after uploading, okay, so you're going to make this video, you're going to upload it to live text. And after uploading it, you're going to add annotations. So annotations, just think little notes. So if you upload a video into live text the correct way, and the correct way is written out in Blackboard, the instructions are there, you load it, and instead of showing up as an attachment, it kind of shows up like a YouTube video. It's in a frame, so you can actually view it. Then this little note popper tool comes up, this annotation tool, and you can add your little notes to it. So what do you add in these little notes? Well, all of the things it tells you to in the instructions. But the big picture, what you're putting in the notes is you're explaining the why of why you did different things in the video. So for example, your video is supposed to have some kind of an engaging start. Okay, that would make sense, right? To kind of grab and hook your audience. So you do that completely in character. The whole video, the content is in character, but those notes explain like the teacher talk, like talking from teacher to teacher, what your strategy was and why you chose it. Um, you do have to have a thematic connection in it. Okay. The little annotation has the standard and it mentions what the connection was, stuff like that. All right. So the question was here, let me skip ahead one instead, because so here's what I would suggest. Now, I've already got people asking, which are great questions, like, am I filming myself? You absolutely can do that if you want. I strongly recommend that you don't. And here's why. So the I my goal is to take you through this course and you learn certain things, but my goal is also to get you through this course in one piece. So for those of you who haven't done a lot of videography when you're actually filming yourself or another subject, it's much more complicated. You get into lighting. If you're outside and you're demonstrating something in basketball or soccer, for example, or whatever, you've got sound, because unless you've got a really nice mic, you're picking up wind and all these outside noises and all of this junk. So I strongly suggest you don't do that. What I suggest you do is make a PowerPoint on some fairly focused topic. Then there are lots of options listed in Blackboard. So basically, you're going to take that PowerPoint, you're going to run it through like Screencast-O-Matic, or you're going to upload it to Zoom and record it while you're talking or whatever. There are lots of different options, and you're going to make that PowerPoint into a video. That is what you're going to upload. Again, if you really are absolutely determined to film yourself, go for it. But all of those technical issues, for every time I see somebody who gets it right, I see 4 or 5 videos that run into real problems with that. So my strong suggestion is that you make it easier on yourself and just make it a slideshow that you then kind of adjust into a video. Okay, so hopefully that addressed, I think. If not, feel free to retype it in. But David and Patrick's questions. Now you'll see an example. It's not an example that was uploaded to live text or even made for this class, but by tomorrow, probably tonight, but definitely tomorrow morning, you'll see an example flipped video that I pulled off of YouTube, and I put in little critiques afterwards, what the video got right, what I feel like they could have worked on, what their growth areas were. Okay. But again, just think like, for example, for a health class, if you wanted to do like 5 minutes on something fairly focused on nutrition, that is fine. Like I said, five isn't a lot of time. Think 5 minutes or so. That way, if you run over, it's not a big deal. Something very focused. Can you show somebody else's video to show something specific? Just briefly, if we cited, if that's a piece of what you're doing, yeah, obviously you can't just show somebody's video and turn it in. But if you want to use a little piece of video within what you're making, that's okay. I get students who do that sometimes. I also get students who simply pretend for the sake of time and say, okay, now students, here's this video, and then they pause for like 10 seconds and then they just keep going. So you could kind of go either way on that. You just want to make sure that somebody else's video isn't the majority of it, especially with 5 minutes. If you're going to do that, it would be something that would be talking for probably all of about 30 seconds or so. Definitely no more than a minute. But let me go back a slide now. Like those annotations that I talked about. Okay, this is a screenshot from live text and from a student project. Okay, so this was a video. You can see the little play button. And down at the bottom, and this is tough if you're watching this on a portable device, but if you're seeing it on a laptop, you can probably see these little gray kind of like almost teardrops. Those are the timestamps for when the student added their little annotation notes. And that rectangle on the bottom right is one that I clicked on so that you could see what it looked like. It's one that has standards in it for the thematic connection. You can't see the whole thing because I'd have to scroll through it, which I can't do obviously from a screenshot. But I wanted you to kind of see what this looks like when it's done. So obviously the yellow stuff's not there. That's just me pointing out things to you. But again, it's just kind of a video, sort of like a YouTube video, but in live text. So it's got that little viewer pane, and then you just add these little notes to it. So problems that students tend to run into with this, and let me say up front, this is nowhere near as complex as the unit plan, which is why it's something we're doing in a week, not really over a month. But things that typically cost students points, that, like I said, you can start with a PowerPoint, but you have to put it into something else and make it into an actual video. Just turning in a PowerPoint of any kind will not be accepted. It won't be a redo. It's just going to cost you a bunch of points. Not adding the annotations or adding the kind of giving up and adding them in a Word doc. They have to be there in live text. Not reviewing the rubric, which I'm going to bring up in a second. The rubric is very, very important. Or very occasionally, I get somebody who, instead of doing something that's designed for students, they give me something where the whole time they're talking to another teacher. That's not really the assignment. So let's take a look at our handy dandy rubric. And I know the writing's small, but I'm going to go through it. I'm not going to read every cell because I'm hoping everybody wants to get a 4 in every category. So let's look at that. It only has 5 categories. So goal, I am absolutely fine with an objective. As I've said before, I'm not a big fan of goals, but so a goal or an objective and a standard or standards, okay, for your flipped video are identified in your annotation. What you're going to find out is annotation is a big part of the rubric. So you could make the best PE video in the history of PE videos, but if you don't have those annotations in, you lose points in almost every category. And I mean a lot of points. So make sure you have those in. So a goal and a standard. Student engagement. Again, you had an engagement strategy at the beginning. And your annotation, there it is again, explained why that was, how it connected to the learning goal. Use of technology. And again, okay, was purposeful and appropriate. And the annotation kind of explained what your strategy was for your use of technology. This isn't a book. This is like a couple of sentences. The next one is the only one that doesn't have to do with annotations. Your academic language, your language within your content area is used appropriately and explained, not in the annotation, but in the video. So if you were saying, I don't know, what if you were defining a kilocalorie, you were explaining what that means in a health or a PE class, you would actually explain what it meant. And don't ask me because I didn't design this rubric, but for some reason, filler expressions landed in the same category. So yes, this is something that would be going out to kids, so you would want it to be your best work. Well, and for this course too, as well. So you want to make sure if you record out your video and you listen back through it and you have a bunch of uhs or ums or you knows, things like that, okay, you're going to want to re-record it. Now, for me, I've probably used, well, not but probably the other two, and I would think okay as the question mark, probably about 20 times just since I've been talking in this session. But I'm also doing this with a visual guide off the top of my head. I'm not sitting back and reading off a script and recording it. So again, make sure because that's an easy way, unfortunately, to lose points, to go down because if you get to the point where filler expressions are repeatedly used, to me, that's like around 10 plus, then you've gone down basically on a 20-point assignment, you've gone down a grade and a half. So again, if you record it through and it has a bunch of those in it, just re-record it and go through and kind of catch yourself the next time through. And then the last piece is thematic connection. So there has to be a thematic connection, not the three, doesn't have to be VAPA, nothing like that. It doesn't have to be anywhere near as detailed as the unit plan. Okay. But there does need to be one. And this is probably the most common thing where students lose points is that you also have to provide the standard. Now, remember, and I apologize to my English teachers in this course, but language arts standards are typically the easiest ones to tie in as an additional subject matter area because you could just make the extension activity some type of research assignment, usually some type of a writing assignment, and then you just connect them to a grade level standard and you're done. So again, though, remember, review the rubric and make sure to have those annotations in there. They are super important. I cannot stress enough. Every term I have probably one very nice and every other way video that goes from an A to like a D plus because it didn't have any of the annotations in it or didn't have most of them. So please make sure you have those.